Good evening, and welcome to the 7th episode of the Circles of Trust podcast. As always, I am Uriel5150, also known as Connor.
And I am DV, also the host of Unscripted Review. You should check out my channel, y'all. I got some movie reviews. It's kind of what we're doing here, just not as, mine isn't as vulgar. Like, we're vulgar here, I'm not vulgar on my channel. But check out my channel, Unscripted Review.
The link will be in the description. Today we're talking about possibly the greatest movie to have graced the silver screen in the past 50 or so years. And of course, it would be the latest hit action epic from visionary director Taika Waititi, Thor, Love and Thunder. I was workshopping meme names for it, like something and Blunder, but I couldn't think of a good and Blunder. But
Wildebeest had Bruv and Blunder.
Bruv and Blunder.
From, you know, he had to pull from other Thor lore such as Miles Morales. It's gold. When I put Love and Blunder in the group chat and then he came back with no, it's Bruv and Blunder, I was done. I was like, you know what? That's genius. It's genius.
I normally give a recap talking about the movie and its events. And I'm going to give one. And here it is. Thor hit his head really hard and forgot the events of the last 10 years and woke up as a infant. And his weapons all of a sudden have personalities and traits of their own. And his ex-girlfriend is a worthy hero of Asgard, unlike any other hero of Asgard we've ever met. She gets a statue made of her.
Lady Sif, man.
Lady Sif.
Lady Sif.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about because it was really upsetting. There's no other good way to put it, for me at least. Thankfully we got to watch it together, which we don't really watch movies. I don't watch movies at all, really. But being able to watch it with him was a great experience because so many times in this movie we would literally have to turn to each other and go, what the fuck is going on? From like the first 5 minutes, I think. Yeah. When they did the opening montage.
Yep. Opening montage.
Like because it cold opens on gore. And then right after the gore scene, it cuts into Korg's Korg's little montage. And then it shows the quick cut of all of Thor's companions getting killed by Hela.
And this guy.
And this guy. And this guy. And whoever that is.
Yeah.
And it's like, anyways, I'll start from the top. Obviously, if you're at this point in the video, you understand that I've jumped hard in with spoilers. I'm going to have a big spoiler tag at the beginning. Thor Love and Thunder opens with gore. And he's a priest of some kind. He's got religious markings on him. He's in this barren, desolate wasteland of a planet. He's got a very small girl with him, and they don't have any food. They don't have any shelter, and they're getting blasted by the harsh winds. And Gore, played by Christian Bale, prays to a god that he had, serves on a medallion that he wears. No answer.
And through the markings. And through the markings on his head, too.
Yes, he has markings on his head that mirror that same medallion. His daughter succumbs to the elements, and moments later, he stumbles upon an oasis in the middle of this desert. And he comes across a scene. There's a lake, like a pond filled with crystal clear water. There's fruits and things all over the place. And he comes across a god with some of the worst CGI I've seen, perhaps in my life. It's thoroughly shocking.
Yeah, it's really bad.
The head tracking was just the body and the head were like two separate entities, and I don't know if it was intentional, but it was bad, whatever it was. Bad. And the god's like, "Hey, you're drinking, eating my shit. What's up, dude?" And Gore falls to his knees, like, "Oh God, I've served you faithfully, and I've done everything you asked, and I'm the last of your followers. The planet has succumbed to the elements. There's none of us left." The god's like, "Oh, well, I mean, we can always get more people. That's not a big deal. People or whatever." And Gore goes, "No, you don't understand. I'm the last one. And, we'll die if you don't help us." And he goes, "Well, good." The god says, "Good. You're supposed to die for your god. That's your purpose." Yep. And while he's talking shit to Gore, he looks at a dead body directly behind Gore with a sword next to it and goes, I'm just celebrating my latest victory over the latest wielder of the Necro sword, the sword made specifically to kill gods. Thankfully, I've killed this man before he could. I've killed this beast before he could slay another one of our brethren, and then proceeds to entirely drop his guard and start choking Gore. And he's like, now you talked shit to a god, so I have to kill you. And the sword manifests itself in Gore's hands. Is like, hey, if you promise to kill all the gods, we'll help you out. So just kill all the gods, bro. Like, trust me, it's gonna be great. And so Gore kills the god with the god-killing sword that was 3 feet behind him. Shocking. And he's like, ooh, it's not a miracle. It sounds more like a promise. in like, you know, Christian Bale accent, you know. And then hard cut from that to a voiceover from Korg recapping the adventures of Thor the Space Viking, which is interesting because we haven't seen the adventures of Thor the Space Viking. Nope. We've seen the adventures of Thor the Avenger, who has done a great deal of heroic deeds on Midgard, Asgard, Jotunheim, Alfheim, actually. They went there too. So they've gone to all these. Oh, Muspelheim. Yeah, because he fucked with Surtur in Ragnarok. Yeah, so he's been to all these different realms, and he's parsing it down to like these little jokes. It's like a joke every 2 seconds. It feels like a staccato of offense. It's just one thing after the other. The montage of all of Thor's companions from the first 2 movies, because they kind of die in the third one mostly. They, you know, he just like, oh, whoever this guy is, and like cuts to their very brutal deaths, and like plays it for a laugh, and talking about how like Thor went from, you know, dad bod to god bod, and like having his little training montage with his enormously fat CGI belly, and just really kind of downplayed the death of Loki and of his mother and of his friends, and like
everybody.
Thor has the most loss out of any single character in the MCU. I think, like, anyone who's on the hero side, nobody's lost as much as he has. Yeah, because he's lost all of his hunting companions except for Sif. He lost his brother. He lost his father. He lost his mother. He lost his realm. He lost his best friend in Heimdall. Yeah, he's lost so much. And it's played for, oh, tee-hee, so funny. And then it opens up where he's like, and now all I do is meditate. I'm like a warrior monk, and I wait until the people call and say, we need your help winning this battle. And then Star-Lord comes up behind him and says, we need your help winning this battle. And then he like had this whole elaborate cloak on. And then he goes and jumps down the mountain and summons down. And he's like helping the locals out. And he's like, okay, let's fight. And the Guardians of the Galaxy are there briefly. And they're like holding out against these monsters, and things are looking dire. And then Thor just rips off his cloak, and he's got like an 80s style like rocker vest with like the white t-shirt and the jeans on.
He's biting off my man Star-Lord. Like, yeah,
because that's Star-Lord's whole thing.
That's his shtick. Yeah. That's his shtick.
It's really upsetting too, because it doesn't serve anything. And he just had what I thought was a pretty cool outfit on. Like, he had the whole cloak thing if he's going for the warrior monk bit. Sure. But even that was played for a joke. He goes into the rocker outfit. He wrecks the shit of all the aliens. There's a really gratuitous, like, Jean-Claude Van Damme split scene that was upsetting.
Ladies and gentlemen, I almost wanted to walk out on that scene. Connor was asking me what were some scenes that I almost felt like I wanted to walk out on. That probably was one of them. Like, in the very beginning.
Genuinely same. Like, just that whole bit was so stupid.
Terrible. Yeah. It's terrible.
And it's like awful CGI. Like, there would be ways to do that practically that would look okay. But the CGI was awful, and it looked off-putting. And yeah, so they win on this world, and then Thor destroys the temple of the god these people, the natives here had, just willy-nilly, because he just doesn't respect anything anymore. He just kind of forgot about all the lessons he's learned for the past 10 years. And the natives are like, oh, by the way, our god got killed by a guy wielding the Necro sword. Like, oh, isn't that wild and wacky? And Thor's like, huh, the Necro sword, the sword made specifically to kill gods. That doesn't sound like my fucking problem. Anyways, let's get back on the ship. And they're like, oh, as a token of our gratitude, here's 2 gigantic space goats. And they do the fucking screaming goat noise. from the 2006, 2007 goat screaming memes, back when Goat Simulator was the hottest fucking thing on the market. And the second it happened, I was like, this is goddamn Taika Waititi voicing the scream. And sure enough, so now he's officially 3 characters in his own movie. He's Korg and 2 stupid ass goats, and the goats scream. Like, whenever they hold on a scene for a period of time, it's punctuated by the goats screaming. It's so off-putting. Because nothing's allowed to just sit. You're just assaulted by this fucking noise over and over. The Guardians of the Galaxy, realizing this movie's about to turn into hot dog shit, even faster than it already had, are like, hey, we're the fuck out because James Gunn isn't writing us.
Like,
so
we need James Gunn.
Bye. Hey, get the fuck off our ship. Have a great night. So the Guardians just fucking get the fuck out. Thank God. Like,
yes, thank you.
Yeah, DV was like, oh, I'm so happy they're gone.
Yes.
Like, they don't need to be here for this.
Yes, they don't. Guardians of the Galaxy probably, I mean, I used to read some of the Guardians comics, so I know they're different than they are in their comic realm. But James Gunn, his brand of humor and mixed of action and seriousness, I like it. And I like what they did with the Guardians there. Some people will argue and say it's not the Guardians, which, yes, but if I have to deal with them changing something, I'd rather it be changed that way than what they did to Thor.
Changing things in service of telling a better story is fine. But the prerequisite for that is you have to be telling a better story.
Yes.
James Gunn took a lot of liberties with the Guardians of the Galaxy, but it makes for a very cohesive, very relatable, very engaging story with characters you give a shit about. That did not happen with Thor. Thor is like, oh, I'm going to use the Bifrost and I'm going to go, where the fuck does he go? Oh, he sees that while they were on the ship with the Guardians, they were getting distress calls from a bunch of different planets where like, oh, our gods are being killed by a guy with a necro sword. And Thor looks through all of them and he's like, oh, it's my buddy Sif. And she looks like she's in trouble. So he Bifrosts to whatever planet she's on with Korg and the 2 goats, because why not? They end up on the planet and they fucking scream from the goats, and they find Sif. And she's missing an arm and she's heavily wounded. And she's like, you know, Thor, it's too late for me. Let me die. Like, I want to die a warrior's death so I can finally be embraced in Valhalla. And Thor goes, well, actually, Sif, the battle's already over. So if you die now, you don't get to go to Valhalla. That's not how it works. And she looks at the camera and goes, shit, because that's a thing that we've heard Asgardians say frequently, not by Odin's beard, not
Fade.
Sorry, by Odin's mighty fade. Yeah, like there was a lot of cursing in this movie that felt really out of place because it was coming mostly from the Asgardians. Like, they don't curse like that. They were more like Shakespearean in delivery. Thor, I get to an extent, but even he was kind of comical about it.
Yeah.
And Jane Foster was made very bro-y. Like, she had like, oh, bro, whoa, what's going on? Oh, shit, bro. And like, that was really not what she ever did.
No. She's a nerd.
She's a fucking nerd. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. He convinces Sif to come back with him. He brings Sif back to, was it New Asgard? Yeah, to New Asgard. Yeah. And then while he runs back, it cuts to Jane Foster, who has a very tastefully done sequence of her dealing with the fact that she has stage 4 throat cancer, brain cancer.
They didn't. I don't think they
specified. She has stage 4 cancer of a kind, which is bad.
Yep, they didn't say what it was.
And her prognosis was that she has a very limited amount of time to live. And so she's talking with Skarsgård. What's the dad's name? Stellan?
I keep want to say Alexander, but that's not.
No, that's
the popular.
That's his son. I think this is Stellan Skarsgård, something like that. Anyways, the older Skarsgård, the Skarsgård that is in more shit, the older guy. That was in Thor 1 and 2. Anyways, he does some blood tests like, hey, Jane, I'm sorry. There's no time left. Like, it's just going to get worse. I'm really sorry. Like, let me know if you need to talk. So while she's sitting there looking over her blood work and everything, she turns to her right, and all of a sudden there's just 2 books on Norse mythology just sitting on the desk. And it was never really... Anyways, so she goes over, she opens up one of the books, and it's immediately on the page that it needs to be. And it's like, oh, Mjolnir grants strength and stamina to its wielder. And so then it cuts to her going to New Asgard in like a disguise. She's got a hoodie on and like Converses and shit. And they have Mjolnir, which shattered in the at the beginning of I guess at the end of Ragnarok, but the beginning of the
it's at the beginning because Hela did it. She caught it.
That's true. Yeah. So beginning of Ragnarok. I meant,
how did they get that shit there? Now that I think about it, because that shit was shattered.
That shit was shattered
in New York or something.
No. It was at the site. It was at the site that they were at, because that's where Odin faded, like right on the coastline there, and that's where they built New Asgard.
Okay.
So the hammer was probably still there when they got back.
So it just was laying.
How the fuck did they get it up on the pedestal is the better question.
Who the fuck did it? Unless they had with Thor. Well, I guess
Thor wouldn't. Or probably wouldn't. Well, there is the segment where he is in New Asgard. So
yeah, he's there. He's fat Thor.
But why would he put it on a tourist attraction pedestal? Because that's not his kind of thing.
I know how. Because they don't give a shit.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Hell yeah.
They
don't give a fuck about anything. Not a good goddamn. So she goes to New Asgard, which is a gigantic tourist trap now. And Mjolnir is in a glass display case with all of its pieces. And there's a tour guide being like, and this is the hammer that Hela smashed. And what the fuck ever. And then Jane Foster looks at it, and the hammer starts rumbling, and the sky gets overcast, and it cuts back to Thor. And then Thor comes back to New Asgard, and he's got Sif, and it's like, oh, like she's fucking wounded, and Korg's there, and the fucking goats are there, and it's just so stupid. And so they get back, and then Gore shows up in like the shadows. He's like a shadow. I would consider him to be like a shadow warlock, is kind of like his whole vibe.
Yeah,
he's got supernatural powers, but they're not really explained what the extent of them is. And his preferred method of killing people is with a sword while his opponent is restrained, which I think is smart. It's a good way to kill people, but it just never works. We never see it work, which is unfortunate. Anyways, so he shows up in the shadows, and he's like casting a shadow over New Asgard, and then monsters start popping up, and Thor's like, ooh, and then he starts like hitting shit with Stormbringer or Stormbreaker? Stormbreaker. And the goats are kicking people, because that's a thing they do.
Yep, it's cool.
And the only people that are putting up a fight in New Asgard are Korg, the goats, Thor, Valkyrie, and a mystery combatant. None of the other inhabitants of New Asgard, people who emigrated from Asgard, who are god-trained warriors. There's a name for it. I'm really bad at pronunciation on this one. And Hariar, I think is what they're called. It's like EHJIHN, like it's some shit like that. But basically, like Odin's elite forces. These are the people that are trained to die in combat, because technically, and Hariar are the ones that are from Valhalla. Those are the ones that are supposed to fight in Ragnarok.
Okay,
where the fuck were they? Moving on. Nobody else is putting up a fight. Thor looks across the battlefield, and he's like, oh, who's this mystery combatant? And he sees Mjolnir fly out. He's like, oh, my hammer. Ooh. And he goes to reach for it, and it goes away from him, and it goes into the hands of Jane Foster. Oh, a big fucking surprise. Who knew? Not like it wasn't spoiled in every goddamn trailer. And they have, I think, like a 3-minute talking scene.
They do.
While things are being actively destroyed, there's a real, like, I'm not going to say what I was about to say. It wouldn't have been good. There's real life equivalents to this kind of scenario, right? Where there's an active threat of some kind.
You know what that scene reminds me of Pirates.
Yes.
When,
honestly, take your pick, but
yeah, when it's a specific one though. And it might be in the first one, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Anyway, they're fighting on the ship, and they're talking, and they're arguing,
yes,
like lovers, and they're arguing, and then they hit somebody, and then they come back and they hit somebody here.
Yep.
It reminded me of that.
That's
and I hated that then.
That's the third movie.
Okay.
Where they're getting married in the storm.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they have other ones like that too. But yes, the Married in the Storm is a specific one that I'm talking about, because it fucking pissed me off.
Yeah, where they're like, oh, I love you, and they're like fight in heated combat. This is actually shittier than that, because they're just standing staring at each other while shit is going to hell around them.
And then, but they were talking and hitting, like he was leaning back and hit.
Yeah.
Shit. It just, I don't know, that it gave me those vibes, and I hated that scene, and it made me hate this one even more. Terrible scene.
I'm going to speed up this recap, because I'm already fucking tired of this goddamn movie. So Gore shows up. He tries to kill Thor. He fails. Thor and Valkyrie and the mighty Thor, Jane Foster, push him back. And he's like, hey, fuck all y'all. I'm going to steal all your kids. And he does like the chitty chitty bang bang. Do you remember did you ever watch Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
I don't know. Maybe it may have been like in the 90s or 80s.
So there's a character in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang that just steals kids. And I forget.
Piper?
Yeah, but like
type of dude?
Yes, but like he's way creepier. And I forget, like, and he was wildly out of place in that movie. But I forget what they call. He has a really funny name. Hold on. I'm genuinely going to look this up because it's that funny. I'll cut it for time, but goddamn. What is the name of the character that steals children in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
According to Wikipedia, the child catcher is a fictional character in the 1968 film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and a later stage musical adaptation.
Look at that motherfucker. Right?
That's yeah.
Yeah, the child catcher. So anyway, yeah, he pulls a child catcher and he goes around and he fucking creepily like snatches kids out of their beds and puts them in a shadow cage and then disappears into the shadow. He can teleport to anywhere there's a shadow, I guess. I don't know. His powers are never explained at all. No limitations, nothing. He's always as powerful as he needs to be, just like every goddamn villain and hero. Anyways, cut to the next morning. Town hall's in ruins. Everyone's freaking out. Valkyrie's trying to instill order. Fails. Thor comes in and goes, hey, everyone. And then like they all cut to him and it's like, oh, it's, you know, it's Odin's son. It's Odin's son.
We need to
we need to listen to this man. And then Thor gives the most bumbling fucking speech. Like, it can barely be called a speech, but it's just him being like, we will get your children back. Maybe. We might. I wouldn't count on it. But anyway, and that's not how Thor has ever talked. That's just not, he's not a moron.
No, he's not.
Like,
he's not a moron. He's a master tactician too. Like, this dude.
Yes.
Like, and he's a fighter, dude. He's a fighter. They just turned Thor into an idiot.
Yeah. He gives this bumbling speech. Nobody's impressed. They undermine his character yet again. And then Valkyrie, Jane Foster, Thor, Korg, and the goats all hatch a plan to go to I knew I was going to fuck this up. Omnipotencity. It's omnipotence and city thrown together. Omnipotence is a word that flows very well. City is a word that sounds great. It's like 2 syllables. Putting both those motherfuckers together makes my brain hurt. Omnipotencity. I can only say it like hashing out the syllables. It does not flow. Thor's like, we need to go to Omnipotent City to raise an army of gods to go help us take down the God Slayer and get our kids back.
This is important for later.
This is very
important for later.
He's like, we need it. We need an army. And like, we can't just do it with the 4 of us. Right? So they hatch this plan. They get one of the boats from the town, which is now just an amusement park boat. It's like a Norse longboat, but it's got like a tiki bar and shit in it. It's like this chintzy fucking tourist trap stuff. And they hitch the goats to it. Right? Because that's their trusty mounts, and they're just screaming the whole time. And they put Stormbreaker on the front to like guide the Bifrost. Also not a thing that I thought that could do. Again, the powers of everything are so randomly assigned, just not consistent at all. But anyways, it's important to note that Thor is acting like Mjolnir is like a jilted ex, and Stormbreaker is acting like a jealous current girlfriend, and the weapons are acting like sentient, and they've never done that before because they might be sentient, but not like this. The only cool thing they did with sentience was in one of the worst scenes where they did the huge relationship retcon. And they were like, oh, like here's what actually happened in the relationship between Jane Foster and Thor and da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
But the cool thing they did was Thor turned to Mjolnir and said, hey, no matter what, I need you to keep Jane safe. And the hammer like got inscribed to the rune when he wasn't looking. And it's like, that's promise magic. That's important. You're making an oath, a promise to a very powerful magical artifact. In my head, my nerd ass head, I'm like, that tracks. I have no issue with that. Them acting like ex-lovers is weird.
Okay, hold on. So in this same scene that he's talking about, where they're on the boat, and he takes Stormbreaker is sending him through the Bifrost. So the goats are leading him. He's shooting at the beam. He's doing his thing. Thor goes to talk to him like lovers, right?
Talking to his axe like
they were lovers. The sumbitch pours beer on, like, pours beer on the axe to say, hey, buddy, you know, like, we're good again, we're good. And I'm trying to remember, did the beer like drip down, or did it absorb? Because it shows it run off, but it never shows it hit the ground. That could just be a special effects, bullshit special effects.
They only had $250 million, DV.
I know.
Your expectations are so high, DV.
I don't remember the beer leaking off of Stormbreaker and hitting the ground. I remember it pouring, he's talking, and then they cut away, and then when they show it back, it's like it never happened.
I was specifically looking to see if it got absorbed in there, and I came to the same conclusion. They show it dripping onto it, but they cut away and then it comes back and it's like nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
So I don't have a definitive answer for that, but I don't like it. I don't like that I don't know.
Dumb.
It was very dumb.
It was dumb.
So, because they need an army of the gods, they go to Omnipotent City. They take the shittiest disguises I've ever seen anyone wear. They just throw like different colored cloaks on.
Apparently they were somebody else's clothes though.
Yeah, they were like gods of emotion or whatever.
Yep.
Again, it was played for like a quick laugh, but none of it made sense. And then they go and they're sitting down and they're watching Zeus, who's in charge of this massive pantheon. And the Zeus opens up with it's Russell Crowe, the most racist Greek accent I have ever heard.
Your reaction in the theater, you were like, "Oh no!"
It was legitimately
no.
I was like, "What? This can't be real.
It can't be real."
I'm
it's
not
so real.
I'm not the morality police, all right? I'm truly not. But like, yeah, maybe this isn't a universal experience, but you ever have a friend that you grow up with who like maybe does like a Middle Eastern like shopkeeper accent and like
who?
Yeah, and they think it's really funny every time they do it, and every time they do it you die a little bit inside. It was like that, but an actor who was being paid millions of dollars to do so. And portraying their god.
Yep.
I mean, now granted, I don't know much about current Greek culture. I don't think that there's a lot of people who are like, yo, I'm going to go pray to Zeus. Like, I feel like it's more orthodoxy.
Yeah.
I think that's more the religion of Greece. But that still feels fucked up.
Oh, it is.
That felt real fucked up. And I'll bring more attention to this later, but culturally, Greeks and Romans were not as binarily sexual as we are in our current like Western society. We're pretty like you're hetero, like that's the normative, or you're homo, and that's the outlier. In Greek and Roman culture, it was very common for people to be bisexual. Or homosexual or heterosexual, but like there wasn't like the stigma around it. Zeus is played off as having effeminately gay traits for a laugh.
Yep.
He's wearing a traditional like toga kirtle, which is like the girdle that goes around, and you've got like the short, like it's not a skirt. I think it's literally just called a kirtle. It's kind of like a kilt, but a little bit less flowy. Except his is really short and looks like a tutu ballerina, like a ballerina tutu. And he comes over to the edge of the stairs and then like curtsies out the tips of it as he walks down the stairs. And it's like,
bro,
that's a little too far. That's not funny.
No,
that's offensive. In 2002, that would have brought the fucking house down, right? That would have been the funniest thing anyone had ever seen. But it's 2022 and it's just not funny. I saw it and I was like, this is gross. Like, it's gross that you're doing this for a laugh. Like,
yeah,
yeah. Anyways, so Zeus is talking about like the orgy of the gods and like trying to get all the planning and scheduling for the orgy.
They say this in a Marvel movie.
Yep.
Like they like this is for kids. Yep. Like kids are there.
Yep. They said specifically this is a movie for kids. They're like, this is a kid's movie when people are saying shit like nonstop.
Mm-hmm. And orgies.
He
said it like 2 or 3 times.
Possibly more, because he was like starting to get into like the details and everything. And then Thor is talking to I guess Jane Foster, and is like, Zeus is great. Like, he's just such a role model because he's the god of lightning. I'm the god of thunder. It's a whole thing. Zeus points to him. He's like, in his incredibly racist accent, which I almost wanted to imitate out of reflex, and I stopped myself because it's a racist accent.
It's pretty bad.
And he goes, "Do you have something you want to share with the class?" And he says that, being a god, he's like, "Do you have something you want to share with the class?" Very contemporary language. And Thor's like, no, I'm good. And Zeus is like, no, like, go on, like, share. Like, you have all of our attention. And so Thor starts talking, and Zeus is like, no, come on down into the center and let us all know what you're talking about. So Thor makes his way down into the center podium. Thor's like, I'm here to entreat the help of the gods, and, just gives another bumbling fucking speech. And Zeus is like, "I don't think you are who you say you are." And he restrains him with lightning, like, restraints. And he's like, "Now I will remove your disguise." And he flicks and he knocks all of Thor's clothes off. And he does a very a back shot of Thor with his exposed buttocks. And then it cuts to Thor and be like, "You flicked too hard, damn it."
I say that around the house now just because.
It's a very silly line.
It's really dumb. And not only that, y'all, this dude has tattoos. Like, Thor has tattoos on his back.
I genuinely
tramp stamps. That's one of the things that I hate.
R.I.P. Loki.
Yeah, it's R.I.P. Loki, but it looks like it was a jail tattoo.
Yes.
So just imagine the shittiest tattoo art that you could possibly think of. Like, think of somebody that has a terrible tattoo. That is what's on Thor's back, and it's played for laughs. Like, that's his. It's played for laughs. All of this shit is played for laughs.
That's supposed to be a tattoo honoring his dead brother, and it's played for a haha.
Yep, and it looks like trash.
So, Zeus knocks all of his clothes off. All the women faint. Valkyrie and Jane Foster are like, "Ooh, like, should we stop him? No, like, let's keep this going." And basically Thor's like, "Hey, like, this is a problem for everyone. Gore can kill all the gods." And Zeus comes up. He's like, "Hey, like, you're right. I am scared. Like, this guy can kill gods. Yep. So how about we all hang out here and we wait for this whole thing to blow over?
Yep. Do this orgy.
Do this orgy, and, like, it won't be a big deal." And Thor's like, "Oh, like, you're a coward," and da da da. Zeus is like, "Well, now that you know where Omnipotent City is, we can't let you leave, because then you might tell Gore where it is, and then he'll come and kill all of us." Which, the very obvious glaring plot hole that comes up the second he utters that is, they always had to know where the fuck it was, because how did they get there in the first place? Thor has knowledge of this city. He says he's been there before. He knows how some of the things work in the city. He always knew where it was. So him being out on his own poses no real threat. But it's an excuse to make it so that Zeus is being hostile. Yep. So that gives them an excuse to start fighting. So yep. Korg, Valkyrie, Jane Foster, and Thor all start fighting. In the middle of the fighting, Zeus blasts Korg and destroys him utterly. He just turns into a pile of rocks.
Almost cheered.
Yeah, I was like, holy shit, like, they're actually going to kill off one of these characters, and it's going to be a good moment, because it's going to show Thor that he can't just keep doing this stupid, childish bullshit. And to emphasize how important that point is, the person that's going to die is going to be the most childlike and innocent of the characters they have.
Yep.
It makes sense this would be this character. So then Thor takes Zeus's thunderbolt and he kills Zeus with it. And then Valkyrie goes over to Korg and he's like, "Oh, I'm actually fine." And his head is still there. So she straps his head to the back of her head, and then they finish the fight.
It's literally just his face.
Yeah, it's just his face.
It's just his face.
"Oh, who would have known that only the mouth is the only thing that's alive?" And
it's dumb. It's what it is. It's dumb.
Yeah. So they tried to emotionally cheap shot you with no payout.
With no payout.
So that's stupid. And then Thor steals Thunderbolt from Zeus. It's like,
looks terrible.
Which looks like a Spirit of Halloween prop.
Yeah,
And
it does.
so
it does.
This may be just a weapon nerd thing. And as previously mentioned, I'm a gigantic weapon nerd, as you can tell, and by all the swords I have over here.
Too.
I'm a gigantic weapons nerd. What I look for in movies when I look at prop weapons is I can tell when it's like a metal prop, and I can tell when it's styrofoam or PVC or whatever. Thunderbolt, the first couple of times you see it, it's either a hard resin or a metal. That's
I
fine.
thought it was resin.
But Every scene after that, most of the ones where Valkyrie's holding it, you can see it's fucking bent at the end. It's not a straight thing. It's like flopping around, and I was watching it wiggle around, and I was like, this is a $250 million movie. You couldn't like edit that shit out.
Just have multiple.
Just have multiple.
Just in case something happens to that one.
But no, it's just like a fucking styrofoam, like, blah, 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 blah. I was like, this is some horse shit. Because again, weapons are cool. I think weapons are cool. I like cool weapons. And Thunderbolt, I was like, that's kind of a dumb, lame, like milquetoast take, but sure, whatever. Like it's a Thunderbolt. I get it.
Well, they took, you remember in Percy Jackson?
Yeah.
The lightning thief?
Yeah.
It was like lightning. Like it was, they had to contain it. It was like orbing around and shit.
They only had $250 million, DV. They only had $250 million.
You're right. I'm sorry. You're right.
Yeah. Apology accepted.
You're right.
For the last time.
You're right.
Fucking Christ. So yeah, so it's this big like resin looking thing, which again was kind of lame. But then watching it flop around in the scenes after that, I was like, this is an insult to my intelligence. So they get out of Omnipotent City, which if you remember, the whole point of them going to Omnipotent City was to raise an army of the gods. They recruited a net total of 0 gods. One of the people in their party is reduced to being a face, and the only thing they got out of that was a fucking Thunderbolt. That's the only thing that they have new out of that whole goddamn exchange.
I gotta stop with
Okay.
So he was talking about only $250 million. $95 million to make Percy Jackson. $95 million.
That was also like a decade and a half ago.
Yeah, so it's probably for inflation now. So that was the Sea of Monsters. Let's see when this came out. Yo, it's crazy. 2010.
Oh wow, that's not as long ago as I thought it was.
2010. 95 milli.
So 12 years ago, less than half the price.
And they had like actual lightning, like just the lightning special effects, and he kept it.
Yep.
But they had a resin.
Return of the Jedi had lightning special effects that looked more convincing than what we saw in this movie, and they had to literally cut the fucking film.
Yep, they did. You're right. Just think about that, ladies and gentlemen, for a second.
I'm not fucking mad. So they make their way out of an Omnipotent City. All they've done is get 1 Thunderbolt, net total of 0 new gods recruited. One of their fighting forces badly wounded, and they're like,
other people probably dead too.
Yeah,
because they were fucking people up in there.
Well, it was just the guards. They weren't actually killing any of the gods.
But guards are people too.
Not to the gods. They don't give a shit. And they were fully dead. And, Valkyrie was nutting when she was killing people. that fucking, you saw that? Yeah. So she like slit the throat of like 3 dudes, and then she's like, oh, as their fucking blood is like coursing around her because they bleed, gold.
Yep.
So weird.
Oh God.
So then, and we've skipped over a couple, like a bunch of plot points, but none of it fucking matters. So why should I care? But anyways, we're going to talk briefly about Axel, with the dead name of Astrid. They're a trans character. It's Heimdall's son. The fact that Heimdall's daughter transitioned to male was not offensive to me. That concept was not offensive. Like, I'm not a transphobe. In revealing himself to Thor, he goes, I am no longer known as Astrid. I am known as Axel because of the cool Earth band that I have listened to. That was the part that offended me, because Taika Waititi will not shut the fuck up about Guns N' Roses.
Every 10 minutes.
Every 10 minutes they played the goddamn Sweet Child of Mine. I hate it. I didn't hate that song before. I hate that song now.
It's in all the trailers. It's everywhere.
And every interview.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We'll fucking get to that. So, Heimdall's son has the ability to see through time the same way that Heimdall does, but obviously not as refined. He's still learning. So Thor uses that to like spirit walk to where the kids are, and he goes, I know where the kids are. They're at this place, this nether realm where there's darkness that's so pure that no light can touch it. That is the exact words that he used. Darkness so pure, no light can touch it. So they take their screaming goat carousel and their 3 fighting force members that are still up and Korg's head, and they go to this world, and it looks like something out of Dragon Ball Z, because it's this little like planetoid, But as they're landing, you can see like them walking around it, like
Yep.
it's the
Mario Galaxy.
yeah, like Mario Galaxy style like
Mario
reference.
Galaxy.
It's really really small, and so they're walking around, and then it looks like just a barren moon, and then all of a sudden they're inside of a tent. There's no establishing shot of like this is where the tent is and here's what's going on. Nope, they're just inside of a tent, and because it's this big shadow realm, they can't see anything. So Jane Foster holds up Mjolnir and uses it like a flashlight. Because that's a thing that Mjolnir has been proven to do before.
Well, I guess because he's cracked all up. So the light forces come out of each individual crack. That's a detail that you don't understand. Taika Waititi is a genius.
A darkness so pure, no light can touch it.
Unless it's the mighty Thor.
Oh, right. Unless it's the mighty Thor. And
Boss.
I think it's really cool that how a weapon that got broken now has more cool abilities than it had when it was in one piece.
She threw all his pieces out.
She's pulling a fucking Ivy Valentine is what she's doing.
Yes, she threw
I hated
all of his pieces out. She threw his pieces out to hit other things, and then they reassemble. If that was the goddamn case, when Hela broke the mofo, it should have just came back together and went back into Thor's hand, and he could have whooped some ass, even though they weren't gonna let him touch her because he didn't lay a finger on Hela the whole time. And I love Hela. Like Hela is dope, but Thor should have whooped that ass. Like in reality,
Absolutely. Should have beaten the brakes off of Hela.
yeah.
So you're inside this tent, and very conveniently, there's like a little like wall cave painting in this little hut that Jane Foster finds, and she's like, "It's a trap!" And then she takes Stormbreaker and she throws it off into the atmosphere, or lack thereof, just off into space. And Thor's like, "Why'd you do that?" And she goes, "Because the Bifrost is the key to the gates of eternity." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I guess." So Thor's using Thunderbolt. Or is Valkyrie using Thunderbolt?
Valkyrie was using the Thunderbolt at first.
Yeah, and then she got stabbed real hard, and then he used it. So they're doing this like 2D fight around the planet. It's very stylized. And at first I was like, this is kind of cool because it's like a shadow play, and like the highlights that you're seeing are the yellow of the Thunderbolt, the blue glow of Mjolnir, and I guess the sword of Valkyrie had like a little bit of a glow to it. It was like and they're fighting these, monstrous shadow forms.
Yep.
Gore does the move that he should have done. It should be Gore's only move, which is person swings at you, you teleport, end up behind them with your sword in their back.
Dark Souls.
100%. You let them act like a fucking idiot.
I'm learning.
What? And then you just
I'm learning.
and you see how easy it is.
Yeah.
Just stab the shit out of them. We watched that the Wanda how it should have ended thing.
Mm-hmm.
There is a moment in that is a reference to another video that I need you to remind me to show you before we leave, because it's a Dark Souls reference that you will now get.
Okay, fair.
That aside, so Valkyrie gets fucking wrecked. She's not dead, but she's wounded. Thor takes the Thunderbolt, drives off Gore again. He calls Stormbreaker back. Oh no, he was using Stormbreaker because he called it back to fight. So then he opens up the Bifrost. They go to teleport out, and Gore takes Stormbreaker from him with no effort, because there's apparently no sort of enchantment on Stormbreaker like there is a Mjolnir that says only the worthy may wield it. He just fucking...
Well, I don't think that there is on Stormbreaker, but at the same time, Stormbreaker, I don't think Stormbreaker, if it has feelings,
if it is a sentient weapon,
it should not have let him like fucking touch. Like, it should have done something.
Yeah.
It did nothing. It just was like, oh, I'm just a normal dumb axe now.
Mm-hmm.
But before, like the scene where
it was floating on its fucking own,
and then turned towards him like, you mother. So no, like they don't know what the hell they're doing.
They know
from
what they're
one
doing
scene to the next.
They just don't care.
That is, yes.
They don't care.
So you're using my shit against me, right?
I am 100%. They just don't care.
They don't care.
So he has the axe. He goes to the gates. I'm gonna go real fast here. Goes to the gates of eternity. Thor takes Jane back to Earth because she's dying, because Mjolnir is not letting her immune system fight the cancer, and Valkyrie got her shit fucked up. There's a very touching scene where Thor is talking to Jane Foster. Is like, hey, like, I love you, you moron. I don't want you picking up that hammer again because it's killing you. And if there's a chance you could live, I want you to take that chance. I'll be fine. You focus on fighting this cancer. It was a good scene.
Yep.
I don't really have much gripe with it. Probably the only good scene in the whole fucking movie. If I were going to criticize something, I'd say that it's kind of an emotional low blow to frame it in the framework of cancer, because that's something that everyone has some sort of experience with in this day and age. So it's kind of playing on the familiar heartstrings rather than making an actual conflict and resolving it. But Thor teleports instantly to the center of the universe because that's a thing that he does it with Thunderbolt, for the record. A weapon that
we didn't know that it could.
We didn't know Thunderbolt could travel with.
We had no idea. Every single scene that has ever been shown with that damn Thunderbolt, you do not know that it has that type of power. So whatever the plot needs,
it does.
It does.
Yep. So he teleports to the center of the universe. All the kids that got kidnapped are just in the temple, hanging out like half a mile behind where Gore is trying to open up the door. Stormbreaker is burning a hole into the Gates of Eternity. The Gates of Eternity, for the record, are locked by a lock that is a Celtic knot, which is the same type of symbols that you see on Mjolnir. And apparently the Bifrost is the only thing that opens up the Gates to Eternity for some fucking reason.
I think Doctor Strange would probably say no to that because he's gone there a lot. He's actually fought beside Eternity.
Well, he didn't know that there were other ways to travel the multiverse, even though his alternate self made a waypoint to go to the Book of Vishanti.
They don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
Yeah. They just don't care.
They don't give a shit.
So I'm so mad. I'm just so mad. Gore is seeing that Thor showing up. Gore and Thor. It's so stupid. So Gore sees Thor rolling up and he starts summoning these big shadow beasts, and it's causing the temple to crack and rupture. And then this big stone head almost falls and crushes the kids. That's when Thor, makes his entrance. He saves the kids. He throws the head away. And then all the kids are like lined up, and he goes, "All right, which ones of you have combat experience?" Like Thor's never interacted with a fucking child before. And again, these are children from his kingdom. He knows these kids. He hasn't been there for a while, but he knows of them. And everyone's like, obviously not. And so in the biggest what the fuck, and what the fuck so severe that Devi and I, the only thing we could do is turn to each other with mouths agape. Thor says, if whosoever shall deem themselves worthy, like the same sort of thing that Odin put on Mjolnir. He's like, I hereby bestow the power of Thor temporarily to all the assembled kids. And so Thor grants all of these tiny babies, like ages 5 to 12, imbues all of their like pieces of masonry and like teddy bears and things they picked up with the power of Thor. Their eyes start glowing like his. They all have like the crackling thunder. And again, this is with Thunderbolt that he is imbuing them. He does not have Stormbreaker. It's with Thunderbolt that he's doing this. A weapon that is not his. He is owned for less than 6 hours.
Stormbreaker is still opening that damn door.
Yep. And Mjolnir is back sitting next to Jane Foster to tempt her into wielding it, which will kill her. That won't come up at all. So the kids get imbued, and then they have what is uncontestedly the best choreographed fight scene of the entire movie. But the kids just are going ballistic and killing all of the shadow monsters. It's not, there's no stakes, there's no danger. The kids are never in any real like trouble. The kids are just fucking wiping the walls with these fucking monsters. Thor goes to fight Gore. He gets the better of Gore and manages to get Stormbreaker, but it's too late.
Yep.
And then Thor's about to get killed by Gore, and Jane Foster shows up. And Thor's like, no, Jane, no. Jane, no. That's more Forrest Gump than Thor. I don't know where that was going. So Jane Foster shows up, and because she's the only real hero in the movie, she is the one who breaks Gore's Necro Sword and then uses the Shattered Mjolnir to explode the shards, which removes all of Gore's powers and makes him mortal-ish. While they're sitting there talking and not doing shit, Gore runs like the 200 feet into the fucking hole while he's all wounded and dying. And like, oh, fuck, we didn't get there in time. And so then they run behind him. He throws Stormbreaker to Axel, And
Yeah.
Axel teleports everyone home using the Bifrost.
Whatever.
And then they go into the Gates of Eternity, and Eternity's there, and Gore's already praying, and Thor's like, choose love. Don't let your hatred rule you. Love. And Jane Foster's dying, and I can't give them credit, but I will at least acknowledge that I was really scared. What they were gonna do is, seeing how Thor was caring for Jane, Gore was gonna wish her cancer away. That's what I thought was going to happen.
I probably would have walked out. Like, so many times I wanted to walk out.
Right.
That might have been it.
And I was like, oh fuck, like this is gonna be bad. Like this is gonna be real bad. And then instead, Jane dies, goes to Valhalla, even though she didn't die in combat, which was a thing they established earlier. But
Did not die.
she died after the battle was over. Whatever.
Lady Sif.
Lady Sif,
They
yeah.
fucked
Even
her
though
up.
you've served Asgard for millennia. Nah, that's cool. Getting your arm torn off and bleeding to death on an ice planet after fighting a Godslayer. Yeah, no, that's not worthy. But Jane Foster, ooh, she's been an Asgardian for 3 months. Ooh. Anyways. Fuck this movie. So Gore wishes his dead daughter back to life, but Gore's wounds are too severe. He succumbs to them. As Gore is dying, he's like, you'll take care of her. And Thor's like, yeah. They added in this plotline where Thor always wanted to be a dad, which was something that had never, ever come up at all.
He was actually scared of that shit.
He was absolutely scared of commitment. That was his whole arc. And
So I guess now
he's fine.
good, yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'll take care of her. And so he loses the last living person that he was close to and gains a daughter. Now, the one cool parallel is this is the same thing that Odin did to the king of Jotunheim, because Loki is the son of the king of Jotunheim, the king of the frost giants. So there's a cool parallel there. I can't give them credit for it because it's couched in so much dog shit. So they go back to New Asgard, and Korg does another voiceover to play us out.
Oh.
And Korg's fine now. He regenerates himself. It's established in the movie that everyone of Korg's race is male, and the way they reproduce is they hold hands over a hot like lava flow, and then they create more like igneous rocks. Whatever. I don't care. Again, the issue I have is not with the homosexuality. The issue I have, and I have to couch this in as much expectation as I can. DV had been like mouthing like what the fuck's the whole time, but we had not been loud about anything. Korg's doing this voiceover. Like, I found a nice man to. I'm doing like a fucking Shire accent. That's not what I want. I can't mimic the New Zealand accent, but whatever. You know what Korg sounds like. Korg says, I found a nice man to create babies with, and his name is Dwayne. As in Dwayne the Rock. Get it? He's Dwayne and he's a rock. The theater laughs because they had been having a great time. Everyone in the theater was like tittering and laughing. DV out loud goes, Jesus Christ. And it was loud and people turned. I was crying. It was the funniest.
So bad.
Because like, you understand, this is the last 2 minutes of the movie, but there had been so much bullshit already that this one insignificant thing was like, you motherfucker.
That was the corniest ass.
It's so stupid.
Like, dude, it was so corny. And the dude had a mustache. It just looked, the whole scene just looked dumb.
It looked like The Rock's dad is who it looked like.
Yes. And what makes me really mad about that is I thought I said that in my mind, but I didn't.
It was very loud.
And Connor lost his shit when I did say it pretty loud, though. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody who was in that theater at the AMC.
Nah, fuck those people. The goddamn clowns in the row ahead of us, like trying to force people out of their assigned seats so they could all sit together because they fucked up their arrangements. And they came in with like 2 shopping bags worth of candy. Fuck those people.
Yeah, you're right.
And they're like, haha, the goat screamed again. Fuck them all. So we're in like the last 2 minutes. Korg's doing his voiceover. He's like, Jane Foster was the mighty Thor, and we erected a statue to her in New Asgard because she died sacrificing for Asgard and da-da-da-da. And then it cuts to Valkyrie training all of these kids that have just killed a bunch of shadow monsters. And I'm like, the first thing I thought of was, you didn't have this training program in place for the fucking adults who had their kids taken, so you just had the army on hand, you couldn't have. Anyways, and then Thor is like cooking pancakes for his adoptive daughter, who's named Love. And she clearly has like cosmic entity powers. Her eyes like glow purple, and she has like psychic energy and shit. And then they're playing it up like he's taking her to her first day of school. It's like that kind of montage, like, oh, like you got to be nice to the other kids, and you know, da 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 da. And they walk outside, and it's a war going on a beach, and he just hands her Stormbringer, this axe that's like 3 times her size, in the worst CGI tracking I've seen. Okay, so if the very beginning of the movie had the guy with the head tracking that was all fucked up, and I was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, it was very quickly supplanted in the next 2.5 hours by that ending tracking on the fucking Stormbreaker.
Like, Stormbreaker is just as tall as this little girl, by the way. Like, taller. She had to like hold it up so it won't scrape the ground. That's how ridiculous that shit was.
And she's clearly holding like a rod or something like that, because it's like again, the tracking is so fucked up. It's like wiggling like outside of where she's actually holding it.
I do better tracking on Final Cut Pro, dog.
Damn right. And so yeah, then it's like, oh, so it's Love and Thunder. That's like Thor and his daughter. Oh, like, and they, you know, we'll talk about their adventures next time. And they close on that stupid fucking Sweet Child of Mine song. That's the goddamn movie. That's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. And it was dog shit from go, because I've got a list.
Yep.
I've got a big list.
Yep. We both. I have mine.
We're gonna hand off between these. But my first gripe is the goats. That meme was funny 15 years ago. I laughed at it 15 years ago. I would look up screaming goat compilations on YouTube circa 2006, 2007. And I was like, wow, they scream kind of like a human does. That's very funny. And then I saw a vagina for the first time. And then I stopped looking for goat compilations because there were more important things in life to focus on. So things change for some people. Clearly for Taika Waititi, they have not.
Nope.
So that's my first point is the goats. What's your first gripe?
That the whole movie looked cheap. Like the costumes, like if you look at Thor in the first Avengers movie, and then you look at Thor in this movie, he looks so much better in the older movie than he does this one. This shit looked cheap.
You know what his armor reminded me of?
What's that?
Beetleborgs. It was that same kind of like hard plastic shiny material.
Yeah, it looked terrible. It looked terrible. Jane's costume looked the same. You know, it's all cut from the same thing. Everything about this movie to me looked cheap, and you didn't get a sense of depth
ever
with it because they used that LED board. So they used the big ass LED board that they use for the Mandalorian and all the other Disney properties that they can quickly put in a soundstage and pump out.
So the thing that sets the Mandalorian apart with their use of that technology is they're always very, very careful about how they frame their shots.
Yep.
And they place physical props at certain junctures to give you the impression that there is something in between rather than empty space.
Yes.
So it like if it's like an indoor shot, it'll be like a couple of crates or maybe like a bar table or something, and it adds that little piece of something that makes you feel like I'm not looking at a green screen.
Yes.
You get that something in your brain turns on, says suspension of disbelief.
100%.
Everything in this movie looked like it was shot on a shitty green screen.
Yes, it was absolutely terrible. And with The Mandalorian, Jon Favreau is a great director. That's
fantastic.
That's why it looks the way he cares. He cares. He cares about his stuff.
He does care.
He started off the MCU. He was Iron Man's first director.
He was.
Like, he started this whole thing off. So everything looks super cheap. The CGI was terrible in a lot of instances. It took me out of the movie. The one that really got me though was at the beginning when the Guardians were there and they were about to he was about to help those people with the dude inside of the temple. And when he was standing on that rock and he took off his cloak and threw it behind him, it looked flat. Like it didn't look like you could see like into the distance. It looked like they were on a movie set, and it pissed me off.
So what it reminded me of was like the matte painting backgrounds you would see in like the 70s and 80s, except somehow worse.
Yeah,
it actually looked worse than a matte painting.
It was worse. Yeah. And well, the thing with LEDs is they give off a glow.
Yep.
So you have to get your lighting for everything else around it proper, because you can't dim the LED screen because you need it as bright as possible to give the background. Dude, it's just terrible.
It looked
so that's one of my big gripes. The movie just looked terrible.
In the movie, Jane and others use the term space Viking magic. Now, what's interesting about that turn of phrase is it is something that critics of the first Marvel movie, the first Thor movie, used in reference to the movie. Mm-hmm. I remember seeing it a lot online where they're like, oh, space Viking magic, like they're trying to play it off like they're technological. Thor has never been anything but respectful about his own culture. Mm-hmm. He's poked fun at like certain things, but never that openly disrespectful. Yep. And to brook that kind of disrespect from someone who is Thor is insane to me. Like it was a really small thing, but like they're undermining every single aspect of the character and anything he's associated with.
Yeah, didn't they say in one of the previous movies, somebody referred to it as magic, and he was like, well, it's Asgardian technology, and anything that anything that people don't understand, they say that it's magic, but it's just our technology.
Correct.
So they go fast forward to this movie.
I think that might have been Dark World when he takes her, takes her to see the doctors because she has the infected with the whatever.
And actually, that probably was the thing that gave her cancer. The ether.
Yeah.
The ether probably was the thing that gave Jane cancer.
Probably, yeah.
Because that shit was in her for like a long time. You remember Rocket had to go steal it in Endgame. So yeah, I believe that's what gave her cancer in my mind. Taika Waititi probably doesn't give a shit about it. No. Never thought about that once because he didn't know she was in Star Wars. But
what?
I think.
Oh, hold on, what?
Taika Waititi didn't know that Natalie Portman was in Star Wars. He said, "Hey, I'm about to do this Star Wars gig. Have you ever thought about being in Star Wars?" And she was like, "I've already been in Star Wars." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. Oh, Korg." Yeah, and he's like, it was captured. Like it's immortalized forever.
There's like a Good Morning America style
You can
thing.
watch that clip.
Fuck me.
It's real. Yeah. So he was like hyped too. Like, yeah, have you thought about being in Star Wars?
Star Wars?
So yeah. All right. So what else do you have on there?
Oh, that was still.
Oh, that was yours?
That was space Viking magic and disrespect to the character.
It is very disrespectful to the character. Hardcore. So I guess mine. I want to talk about Gore real quick.
Sure.
So Gore is a very menacing character in the comics.
Yes.
Like, I mean, he kills gods. Like, that's what he does all day long. That's his motivation for being alive. And he has a alien-like look. Like, he looks like a creature. So it's very intimidating to see him. Now, Christian Bale looked like Christian Bale, dressed as Quan Chi for Halloween. For those who don't know, Quan Chi is a villain in Mortal Kombat. And it's just a bald dude with white skin and these red lines.
He's the poorest man's Kratos.
Yeah. And he doesn't have a tragic backstory. He's just the evil villain dude who likes to stretch people's necks. That was one of his fatalities. But Gore, we haven't had too many great MCU villains. And the way they were hyping this one up, that we were going to see the next great villain.
Yep.
The next tragic, like, just well done villain. And it was not even close. He was all twitchy and weird. He was like he reminded me of Lex Luthor in the Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman and all that, because of his twitchiness, and he would yell in your ear, like yell in your face, and just do like ripping the head off. Just weird ass shit. And it just reminded me a lot of that Lex Luthor, how they portrayed that Lex Luthor.
It was giving me Jared Leto Joker vibes. Yeah.
If he would have did this, then it would have been perfect. Now,
That actually would have been an improvement, I think.
his look.
But the tattoo would have been of the face of the actual Gore.
The real one.
Yeah, kind of face.
That, like, if people are praising this dude's performance, like, I'm telling you, Christian
He's
Bale
getting sucked off in
Yes.
interviews for this earth-shattering performance.
Christian Bale walked on the set. It was like, okay, what do you need me to stand? And they had him stand there, and he was like, oh, I'm gonna be creepy. And then they like, oh, he's a genius. No, he wasn't. He wasn't even in it long enough for you
really
to
wasn't.
give a shit about him. It was,
He probably had like 20 minutes of screen time. if that.
yeah. It's I did like him lurking in the shadows though. Like whenever
Yeah.
he would like appear.
Well, because he had the cool glowing eye effect.
Mhm.
That made him a menacing character.
That
like,
if they would have just kept him in the shadows, it would have been amazing.
yeah.
It would have been amazing. But of course, he's Christian Bale, so you have to show his face and have his presence felt. So Gore was very disappointing to me. But I shouldn't have been disappointed because it goes along with the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
It's not like the rest of the movie was great and then he was the only bad thing. He is right in line with the rest of the bullshit that
It's
we watched.
very on brand for the
Yep.
experience we had.
Exactly. So, all right, that was mine.
The fact that the Gates of Eternity exist in their form, specifically as a wish-granting entity, undermines the entire Infinity War segment. Infinity War and Endgame are rendered completely pointless by the existence of an entity that can grant any wish of any one person. Even more so because Thor not only knows where this thing is, but he has the only fucking key for it.
He has, yes.
So after he makes Stormbreaker, he could have teleported to the gates, gotten in there while Thanos is still fucking around on Earth and been like, I wish that Thanos and the effects of his existence never existed. And you're golden. That's it. That's roll fucking credits.
And they could have had something tragic happen too, because if he would have wished that, that means Gamora would have disappeared.
Yep.
That means Nebula would have disappeared.
Yep.
And that would have caused Peter Quill to be like, yo, what the? Like, it would have had
It would have
ripple
had
effects.
It would have had repercussions.
Yes. And it would have been, the stakes would have been so high. And then
Because instead of it just being trying to play keep away with Thanos, it would have been two different people trying to get to their own solution before the other party does, which I think is always cool. I mean, I loved Endgame and I loved Infinity War.
absolutely.
But like, I think it would have been really fucking tense to have the cut back and forth between, you know,
man.
like all of like Thanos's fleets and stuff trying to stop him from getting into the gates. And then, you
just
know,
think about how tense the scene was where Spider-Man and Doctor Strange and all them had the gauntlet.
Yep.
And they were pulling the gauntlet off. Like how tense that scene was. Amplify that by like 10 million with all of his ships. Man, God,
Yeah.
come on, man. Come on.
so there's so many things. Like they could have wished Black Widow back to life. They could have wished Tony back to life, because you've established that this is an entity that can grant any wish, and up to and including returning someone to life. So Thor could have wished for Odin to be back alive, for his mom to be back
They
alive,
could have
for
had an assembly
Loki to be
line.
back alive.
They could have just had an assembly line because I think it's one wish. I guess, per whatever. They could have had just a line of people, everybody lined up, and you just say, I want this back, I want this back,
Yep.
I want this back. And of course, Ant-Man would have said something funny.
Yep.
He would have wished for something hilarious,
He's
like a
like,
sandwich or something.
I wish I was the best magician in the world.
Yeah.
And he like does more
Anything.
card tricks or something. That'd be
Yep.
sick.
Anything.
Be sick.
Anything. Like, we know Ant-Man is played up for laughs, which is fine. We have characters that are played up for laughs, but Thor was definitely should not be one of them.
And it would have been even cooler if there was some sort of double cross involved here, where it's like, I wish like Loki was returned to life, and then Loki comes back up and he's like, I wish Thanos wins.
Yeah.
And like be like this huge fuck you.
Yeah,
Like
boy.
that would have been fun. You know.
Yeah.
But the fact that they have this wish granting entity breaks the continuity of there ever having been stakes involved.
Yep.
Ever. Eternity is an established character in the MCU, or not the MCU, but in the comic book universe.
Yep.
Typically having worked with Doctor Strange to fight Dormammu and other cosmic level threats like that. So a good movie for Eternity to have shown up would have been Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. We had to get it in there. 7 episodes, baby. Still going strong. Yeah, so that was upsetting.
Very upsetting. All right, so let's see.
Actually, I apologize. I have an addendum to that, because if we're talking about undermining Endgame, my next point also does that.
Okay.
The fact that Thor can on demand deputize any number of Thors to be just as
that was next
powerful.
on my list.
Yep. Yeah, Thor bestowing power undermines the events of Endgame. The whole point of Endgame was that he needed this special weapon to kill Thanos and to use the Bifrost. That was the really important thing. As soon as he landed on Wakanda, he could have taken a second to do the oath, and he could have made all of Wakanda's the warrior women. I forget the name of their organization.
The Malage or the Over Malage or something like that.
Something like that. He could have deputized all of them to have Thor-like powers, and they could have just wrecked shit. He could have given Rocket Raccoon Thor powers, and that would have been a hysterical scene.
And Groot, because Groot was there too.
Groot was there too.
Is part of Storm. Groot is part of Stormbreaker, dog.
Yep.
Like Groot deserves some props here.
You could have had some cool Winter Soldier moments where, you know, he finds out that he's worthy, and, you know, like, could have had some development there.
He might have, you know, he could have had a good scene where he actually like felt emotions, because, you know, he's killed people, lots of people,
a lot of people. So the fact that it also undermines the entire point of them ever having gone to Omnipotent City, because they said the whole point of them going there was to recruit an army of gods. Thor can literally make an army of gods. Any number of people, he can be like, you have godlike powers for X amount of time. And it only took 2 gods to fucking take down Gore and destroy the Necrosword. It only took 2.
Yeah.
So he needed to find just 2 parents in New Asgard who were like, I want my kids back. He's like, sick. Come with me to the center universe real quick. And you're Thor's. And we get the sword. Yeah. That would have been raps. That would have been, but like, they don't know how to write a story with stakes.
No.
They have to make everyone as powerful as they need to be for any given moment, rather than having a limitation, a set number of rules.
Now, that scene reminds me of the end of Shazam, where Shazam can, you know, they gave all the powers of whatever that thing was called to all the kids. I hated that, but this makes me like that more. Like, I'm okay with it now, because I didn't get as angry, because there was nothing set up before that said that, or no stakes before this that said that this should not happen.
Right.
This was fine for the movie. This undermined everything. And I think I don't want to give Taika too much credit, but I feel like the MCU now, phase 4, wants to get rid of everything before it. Hence why all the characters are being replaced.
I believe it.
And now they're just like, yeah, Endgame and all that was bullshit. This is the real deal. And I hate that, because we invested 10 years in that story arc, and they set rules, and they, for the most part, kept to those rules.
For the most part, sure.
And now we just get to a point where none of it matters.
Nothing matters.
None of it matters. It doesn't matter.
It's amazing how much power the phrase "there are no rules" has in one $25 million movie, and how much detriment it causes in one $250 million movie.
It's terrible. My next thing is back to Gore. Why do we need items that corrupt people to make them villains? Why can't, like, what happened to just having shitty beings or people that are villains? Why does everything you have to be corrupted by something, or you have to be a tragic character in order to be a villain these days? What's up with that?
Tesseract, Darkhold, Necrosword. What else am I missing?
I guess it's another one in there. Hell, it was already.
What about the stuff from Thor 2? Did that corrupt them?
The ether?
Yeah. Did that corrupt the Dark Elves, or were the Dark Elves just assholes to begin with?
I think they were assholes to begin with, but It did not help.
It didn't help, sure.
It did not help. It's always something that you know, like the major villains, they always have something that kind of corrupts them. Or I'm just tired of seeing that in superhero movies and in the MCU in general. It's always something. Like the Flag Smashers, the girl was, you know, she had to have the super soldier serum and all that shit from Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Oh,
like, it's always something that does something to someone to make them a villain. Like
Iron Man 3.
Yeah, the Killian, Extremis.
Extremis.
So it's always something. And I'm getting tired of it, because the thing I enjoyed about Thanos is that, yeah, he you could sympathize with him.
Right. He technically had a tragic backstory, but it's not something they spent a lot of time on.
But he wasn't corrupted by anything. He was like, yo, I'm trying to do this one thing, and I'm going to fuck up anybody who stops me doing it. We don't have villains like that anymore.
You know, we did have a villain like that once upon a time. His name was Claw.
Ulysses Claw.
Ulysses Claw.
Ulysses Claw. Killed him.
He was just a bad dude.
And he was awesome.
There was no like nuance to him. He was just a mercenary son of a bitch, and was a fun villain for it.
Awesome.
And they were like, "What if he got shot in the back of the head in an empty air fucking strip?"
It was dumb.
It was very
so. I'm tired of that trope when it comes to the villains. We don't just have evil entities anymore. We can't just, everything has to be tragic and they have to teeter on the edge. Are they a villain or are they not? Or they could be switched over to the good side. You know, that type of bullshit.
Yeah.
No, we don't need that. Like, if you're going to kill off all of these villains, you can make them evil and die, and you get more of a satisfactory, more of a satisfaction when it comes to their death than you like, oh no, he was actually all right, and then they kill him. Like Killmonger. So they did kind of the same thing with Killmonger. Killmonger has a motivation, but you could have just made the sumbitch evil.
Yeah. And
never turn, teeter on the edge towards the end.
His motivation was pretty weak, to be fair.
Okay.
The lengths to which he was willing to go for the level of atrocity that was committed against him.
Yes.
You'd think that having served the U.S. military, he would have understood the ends justify the means after a point, because that's kind of what the military teaches you. And instead he was like, nah, I'm going to kill hundreds and hundreds of people and still think that these are the bad guys.
Yeah. And yeah,
he was just mismanaged, unfortunately. I thought he was a cool character, but they just didn't do it.
And that's one reason why Black Panther is in the middle of the pack for me.
Black Panther's fucking mid, bro.
He's definitely in the middle of the pack for me. But that's my thing. Like, they hype Gore up so much.
He was just another cookie cutter.
Anybody could have been corrupted by that damn sword.
Anybody.
Like, any random person could have rolled over and said, oh, a sword? Picked up the sword, and then now they're corrupted, and now they have the same thing. I want to kill all the gods because that's what the sword is telling me. Bullshit.
Yeah, maybe one of Thor's unnamed companions could have taken the sword up and been like...
You mean that guy?
Yeah, and that guy? Or whoever that is. One of them could have come back as a revenant wielding the Necro sword and being like, I feel like Asgard left me to die.
Yeah.
That would have been a more compelling story.
Yep. 100%.
So I covered briefly the pointlessness of certain events, meeting Zeus, seeking Thunderbolt, raising an army. The other one that I thought was really funny, just an off thing, they never needed the boat and Stormbringer to travel because Jane uses the Pegasus to reach the center of the universe. She doesn't use the Bifrost. She just shows up on the Pegasus.
Yep.
Now, a larger point, they aggrandize Jane into being this massive hero, so much so that she gets a statue in her honor and she gets to go to Valhalla. Jane is not a hero. Her motivation for finding the hammer was to preserve her own life. It was entirely a selfish motivation to find the hammer. Did she do good once she found the hammer? Sure. But her intentions were selfish. And I think the whole point of the, Norse magic involved with these enchantments around being worthy and stuff like that is intention. That was what the whole first Thor movie was about. Was Thor's intentions and him lying about them and saying oh, Father, I did it, to honor you. And it's like, no, you did it to honor yourself, boy. And it was a whole fucking thing. That was the point. That was the crux of the movie. And he had to learn how to be honest with himself about his intentions. Jane gets to lie about it to herself and everyone else and gets a fucking statue.
And goes to Valhalla.
Loki died saving Thor's life and buying time for the Asgardians. Loki died a hero of Asgard in battle. Okay. Absolutely died a hero's death. And where's Loki's statue? No, instead he still gets memed by Matt Damon in the fucking plays.
Yep.
Very cool.
Burns me out. Okay. So another continuity thing. Thor's eye.
When you told me about this, it fucked me up because I thought I was paying attention and you caught me lacking.
So I remember when I saw the trailer and they're playing that song that we talked about earlier.
Sweet child of mine.
And so they pan over to Thor's face. He has the scar where Hela hit him, but his eye is regular. So those of you who have paid attention, which now Marvel hates people who pay attention, but those of you who paid attention in Infinity War, he gets a glass eye, a cybernetic eye, excuse me, from Rocket. He pops it in his socket, calibrates it, does his thing, and he has a brown eye and a blue eye from Infinity War on up to Endgame. Why does he have
two blue eyes?
Two blue normal eyes.
Yep, I do not have a good answer for that. I genuinely don't. I think they forgot, or they just never cared to begin with.
I think it's more of not caring because they had the sense to give him the scar,
but not enough to change the eye.
But he shouldn't have a scar that way because she hit him this way.
Yes, the way his eye was ruptured,
and he turned like that.
It was like this.
Yep. So he shouldn't actually have a scar that way, but they gave him the scar, but both eyes were regular.
Yep.
And that burned me up the entire movie. Every time they wanted to show his face, I'm like, he needs to have the slightly larger eye and it needs to be brown.
Yeah. But they don't care.
They don't care. So that was my thing. That was my next thing.
They only had $250 million.
And 10 years of footage of this dude doing stuff.
I mean, but they didn't have a screaming goat in it, so it's not usable.
Yes.
They retconned Thor and Jane's entire relationship in a flashback. Everything that happened in that flashback is not what happened, according to any of the characters in any of the movies. So supposedly that flashback happens between Thor 1 and Thor 2. And to hear them both describe it, that's not what happened at all. They didn't have an opportunity to be cutesy and like live as a couple and he makes her pancakes and she's too busy with her work. The way they make it sound is a lot more awkward than that. Like Thor had trouble acclimating to living on Earth and instead went and fought battles and stuff. That's how it was made to sound. And the flashback was like very rom-com-y, which felt very out of place for their relationship because the relationship has always been more like almost Romeo and Juliet kind of tragic, where it's like star-crossed lovers, two different upbringings, you know. So it was just a weird choice to make it like that. I'm gonna go to my next thing real quick because you've already talked about it a little bit. I just have written down Christian Bale doing a dog shit Joker impression.
Yeah,
that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah,
he's very he's just a dog shit Joker. He's in there. Oh, hello, children. Do you like stories? I think I've got a story. Here's my little friend. You know what he likes? He likes having his head ripped off. It's like, why? He didn't need all his kids alive.
No,
he didn't. Jano didn't need any of them alive.
Nope.
But he could have kept Axel alive, and that would be it. Because then he would have the means to come in and be like, every time you make me wait, I'm gonna kill one of these fucking kids, and like make him rush to put him off kilter. Instead, he just gave him as much time as he fucking needed.
Yep. Much time as they needed.
It made no sense. It never felt like there was any stakes involved.
Nope. That's how Phase 4 is. I have a question, and maybe you can help me out with it. So, the person who was holding the sword in the beginning that was laying on the ground and you see the sword there.
Yeah.
How come they couldn't kill Sun God? Like, what about them? Because the sword gives you powers.
Mm-hmm.
So why couldn't he kill the Sun God? Like, what about?
Gotcha. I've actually done extensive research on this topic. So it's because they didn't fucking care. Actually, it's because Taika Waititi did not give a fuck about anything in this movie. So much so that the character that he has introduced the concept of the sword. Imagine, if you will, you are, I know this is hard to imagine. Imagine you're a being that is impossible to kill. You cannot die a natural death, and you are extraordinarily hard to kill outside of that. You kill the person wielding the one thing that can kill you, right? They've got like a little knife. It's like this big. If it touches you, you die. They had it. You killed that person. They're laying on the ground about 10 feet in front of you. Think you just pop down, sit down for a little picnic, hang out? Or do you think you would use your godlike power to banish that sword as far the fuck away from you as it could go? But no, not only does he sit there next to the sword, the first person that comes along, he goes, oh, that's the sword that kills gods like me right there. That's the one right there on the floor. Good thing that the person who was wielding it died and nobody's holding the sword that can kill me specifically right now. And it just made no fucking sense. I hated it.
I hated that too. I hated that too. And I'm gonna go into another real quick one. So how was Jane just as good as being Thor as Thor was for millennia?
Better. She was better.
Actually she was better.
She had powers Thor never had.
How the hell? How and why?
And she had Thor's power. She was mimicking all of his moves, his classic moveset.
All his shit.
So, do you remember in a movie, I don't know, it might have been like 5 years ago. It was done by a little known director called Taika Waititi. And the climax of that movie was that Thor realized that it wasn't his name that gave him power. It wasn't the hammer that gave him his power. It was the fact that he himself was the embodiment of the god of thunder. And he didn't need Mjolnir to do.
They were playing the Immigrant Song, because I think they played that 3,000 times in there.
You are correct.
Okay, playing the Immigrant Song. All right.
And the climax of the movie was him understanding that he was the god of thunder and had nothing to do with his weapon or anything else. It was him. So it makes sense then that that same director, 5 years, 6 years later, would make a movie in which someone picks up the hammer and then gets all of the abilities that are attributed to Thor's self, not to his hammer.
All right. Good explanation. Yes. And I absolutely hate the fact that she is called the Mighty Thor when Thor is a person. Like,
yeah, it's
he was given that name.
That's a proper noun. That's what his mom named him.
Yeah. But she can become Thor too.
No.
So she's the Mighty Thor. He's just regular ass Thor. Like, he's the great value Thor. Mm-hmm. And she's the name brand Mighty Thor.
So much so that he attempts to emulate her costume because she has cool new things to her costume he never had.
Yes.
So he makes Stormbringer make his outfit match her outfit so he didn't feel as inadequate.
Oh my God. So I'm watching this and I'm seeing Jane, she's like, oh yeah, that was like my first bad guy and all this stuff. Dude, she's doing all types of crazy shit. Thor is a god, bro. Like, he's a god.
And even if you accept the in-universe explanation that gods aren't really gods, they're just beings that have incredibly long lifespan. They can die. It just takes them a long time. And they have special powers. They're not truly gods in the omnipotent sense. Even if you buy into that, Thor's been alive for thousands of years. Like, since the planting of Yggdrasil and like Odin conquering Jotunheim, which was a long fucking time ago, he's been around, he's been fighting, he's been honing himself in combat, throwing himself against insane challenges.
Yep.
We see him one-shot gigantic stone beasts.
Yes.
We see him fucking dunking on frost giants, who are the deadliest foe to Asgard. He crushes dark elves. He's got all these special powers because he's honed them over a lifetime of combat. So it makes sense that a stage 4 cancer patient who picked up the hammer about 4 days ago knows all of his moves and ones.
Spin the hammer and fly and shit.
And knows things that he doesn't know how to do. Because he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, that bothered me a lot. And I know in the comics, she became the Mighty Thor also, which I also thought was dog shit, and nobody bought it. Nobody cared about it. So it makes sense to bring characters and storylines that nobody gave a shit about and bring them to the MCU. Mm-hmm. Hence, Kamala Khan, Kate Bishop, All these characters that nobody gives a shit about, let's bring them in phase 4 and overshadow the actual hero. Reason why we're there.
There are no actual heroes. Oh, are you referring to products?
Whole products, yeah.
Yeah.
They're products.
The new product that got rolled out?
Yeah, they're new products.
Yeah, the Kate Bishop line, the Kamala Harris line. I knew I was going to say it wrong. Like I got cut. I was like, I'm about to say the vice president instead of the fucking comic book hero. Kamala Khan, not the vice president.
All right, so that was mine.
I talked about this a lot. Just going to touch it again. Thor's arc has been ruined. Thor as a character is ruined.
Oh yeah, he's done.
He learned nothing from Infinity War and Endgame. He's back to being a blustering loudmouth braggart, just like Thor 1. His entire arc has been nullified. There's a scene in the movie where Thor is rendered naked by Zeus.
You flick too hard, damn it!
And there's a lot of media attention regarding the nudity of Chris Hemsworth. And I'm a big fan of equality. And I think it's really gross how they are sexualizing that moment in a way that if it had been a female star in that same kind of position where a female superhero was restrained and then accidentally made naked in a room full of gods, there would be insane backlash. And in my opinion, rightfully so. That was a weird joke to have. The title of an article I read, and this is not satire. This is it was a dog shit outlet. But the title of the article was Chris Hemsworth butt is what we need as a nation to reunite us. That's just wrong. Right? Why put that on Chris Hemsworth's butt? He's just an actor.
Just an actor.
He's got a nice butt, sure, but he's just an actor. Like,
he also seemed very uncomfortable whenever someone would mention it, because he's usually jokey and really jokey and like, oh yeah, you know, I'm Thor.
In the interviews, he seemed very off put by people's reaction.
Every time they brought it up, he would kind of, I don't know, you got to watch them. Like, just look up some of these interviews for this movie, and he seems very uncomfortable whenever they're talking about it, because it's like, so how would you like that scene? And he was like, well, it seems like that scene when I was shooting it, everybody wanted to come to set that day.
Like 300 people.
Yeah, dude, come on,
That's weird.
man. That's
Again,
so effed up.
Again, I just imagine the outcry if you switched genders in that moment. Like, hey, I heard Natalie Portman's getting nude on set today, so I called in all the aides and all the delivering people and the catering people, and we're just gonna watch this shot if that's cool, buddy.
Because so in Captain Marvel, she gets captured and they have her hanging, and you know, if they would have just flicked too hard, damn it, and took all her clothes off, the world would have blew up. Like, they would have canceled that entire, like, the director, everybody would have been shot on site. Like, yeah.
But they wouldn't have done it because that bitch ain't got no ass.
I mean, look.
I'm cutting that whole thing.
No, please.
I'm absolutely I'm absolutely cutting that whole thing. I have to. The second you talked to it, I was like, I gotta see it. It's coming.
Don't cut it. But yes, the world would have blew up if it was Brie Larson that was stripped naked and it had everybody on the set like staring and gawking at it and like texting their friends and probably taking pictures and shit.
And for the record, any female superhero actress that should not be the acceptable standard, right? But like, we got to have it both ways.
Yep.
Right? Because now that I've seen bare ass in a Marvel film, I want to see somebody, like a lady who's double cheeked up all that ass out on a Thursday in the same kind of scenario, because we got to play it fair.
Yep, got to play it fair.
I don't think that it's reasonable to have that kind of like frenzy and sexualization around that if you're gonna demonize it when it goes the other way.
Yep, 100%. I just want to say, by far, the like Infinity War's version of Thor was my favorite.
Yeah, he was mature. He understood the gravitas of the situation.
They let Thor be a badass. They let Thor be a badass, and Thor is a badass. He is a freaking god, bro. Like, there's no one that can really F with him except maybe the Hulk. And they did the Hulk so dirty in Ragnarok.
They did.
Oh, God. Shout out to my boy Wildebeest.
They did him dirty in Infinity War, too.
Yeah, they did. Oh, yeah, they did. Yeah. They did. I don't know why they did that, but in Ragnarok, my boy Wildebeest is a huge Hulk fan. Like, I am Spider-Man. He's the Hulk side. So he told me when we saw Ragnarok, he was like, yo, they fucked my boy over. Like, I hate this movie. And I'm like, nah, man, this shit was funny. It had action. It was good. And then when I went back and I really looked at it, they screwed him over. They reduced him to a joke. And it's effed up. So Thor in Infinity War is the definitive version of him. He has everything that you would want in a Thor character. Like,
yeah, his arc has been fully realized. He is Thor Odin's son. He's lost everyone.
Yep.
And he is willing to put his life and everything else on the line to stop a galaxy level threat.
Yep. That's
everything you need.
Picture perfect. Picture perfect.
Now he's been reduced to a punchline for other shittier versions of him.
Yes.
Which is pretty sick. I think the scene where Korg gets killed, like they fake it out like he's dead, I think it would have been nice to have him die there. And I don't say that because he deserves to die. He does. He absolutely does. But I'm not saying that because he deserves to die, but more because it would have justified how violently Thor responded to Zeus. Because in all fairness, Thor was fucking up the status quo and being obnoxious.
Yep.
And Zeus was like, hey, play it cool, daddy-o. Like, maybe, like, take that shit down a notch. If Thor hadn't been such a fucking weirdo about everything, things wouldn't have turned out that way.
Yep.
And then for Thor to kill Zeus with his own weapon publicly in front of every other god, that's humiliation on a scale unheard of. Like, that lesser shit has caused wars. And I could just imagine, like, a war of the Greek pantheon versus the Norse pantheon. And the Norse pantheon's looking a little fucking sparse these days.
Bruh.
I don't think they win that fight.
They should have ascended on that dude right there.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, yeah, everyone should have torn him to fucking shreds because it's like, oh, you came here crying about the god killer. What are you doing?
You just killed the god.
That's basically all my points, I think. Everything else I've already talked about lightly. Stuff like, why is Asgard a tourist trap? That's the most un-Asgardian thing I can think of. Mm-hmm. Why can't Gorr just teleport and stab someone? He only ever did it once, but it was wildly effective. Doesn't seem to be any limit on his power, so why not? Why didn't Gorr use his new teleporting power to seek out a healer for his daughter, or just bring her to the Oasis? She may have just passed out, not died. There's ways to bring people back into the universe, and Gorr can travel between planets. Why not just take her body with and look for a healer or someone to resuscitate her? Doesn't make any sense. No other two gods have ever teamed up to break the Necrosword, because it only took two. It only took two gods. And it's not like Thor is the most powerful god.
Nope.
He's not. And Jane Foster sure as fuck isn't, because she's not a god at all. So it took a god and basically a demigod to destroy the Necrosword. No other two gods ever teamed up and were like, hey, we should probably break this thing that can kill us. That's all I got for that. But then I got the interviews and behind the scenes stuff.
Okay, so this is just something that pissed me off. So looking at, because I knew this movie was going to be a dumpster fire. Yeah. We all knew that. So I looked at some of the interviews and stuff before the movie came out. So they were talking about, they have a video, and I was going to send it to you today, but I couldn't find the exact one. Like, I saw a clip of it, and I think they took the video down, and it's just other people putting the clip that they saw.
The shorts clip.
So it's of her and doing her workout, Natalie Portman doing her workout.
Yep.
Now this pisses me off. I know people out there like, why does Natalie Portman's workout piss you off? It pisses me off because they CG'd her arms. So I was looking for a photo
that showed proof of it, and I couldn't find it. But Entertainment Tonight, they came through and they showed behind the scenes, and Natalie Portman turned. She was in a Thor costume and she had the CG dots on her arm, and I was like, "Ooh, you bastards! Why would you promote this workout plan where all you're gonna do is CG her fucking arms anyway?" And that's all that's shown. Like, they only show her arms. It pisses me off.
So a little aside on that, have you seen the new season of The Boys?
Yes, I had the last episode to watch.
Okay, no spoilers. But there's a character that shows up, and the actor, in preparation for the role, because it's probably his like biggest role since the show that he was on, worked out intensely to get jacked as fuck.
I know
who you're talking about. Worked out so hard, and like
you can say the name of the character.
Jensen Ackles, is the actor. Yeah, it's Soldier Boy. It's in trailers and stuff. It's not really a spoiler for season 3. And I mean, like, he talks about the work that he did, and he's got tons of videos of him working his ass off, and he was always like in shape, but he is fucking shredded. He's like Hugh Jackman kind of fucking built.
Yeah,
in this
Wolverine.
Guy. As Wolverine. And he gets on set his first day, and he's done all this fucking work, and the actor for Homelander is like, "Why didn't you just tell him to add muscles to your suit? You didn't have to do all that." Because that's what he does.
Yep.
Because he's got like a 6-pack and the huge biceps built into it.
That's that dude.
So funny. So like, there are ways to get around this that didn't involve clickbaiting people with a workout. Like, I don't need Natalie Portman to get like jacked as shit, but if you're gonna portray it like that's what she's undergoing to do, that's kind of a draw for me. I like it when people put in effort for the roles that they undertake. Mm-hmm. That's why Christian Bale didn't deserve to be in this movie. Because he didn't put in any effort.
Yeah, he didn't want to put in any effort. So I wanted to point that out real quick, that her arms are CG. I also wanted to point it out, since everything is a goddamn joke to Taika Waititi, inside this town of New Asgard, there's an ice cream shop, and it's called Infinity Cones, and it has the Infinity Gauntlet holding an ice cream cone with all the stones on it. Why the hell would you joke about the dude who he killed the rest of the people, like
half of everything.
Everything.
And specifically, before he even did that,
he killed Loki.
He killed Loki. He killed
beat the shit out of Thor.
He fucking destroyed their like refuge ships. So the reason that New Asgard is so decimated is because of Thanos.
Yes.
There's no way that would be like the 9/11 bakery. Like, that doesn't make any, that's not something you would see.
And you would have the towers with a plane as the logo.
Correct.
That's pretty much what they did.
That's the in-universe equivalent. Yes. I mean, technically it's a lot worse.
It is a lot worse.
But we're like, one's real and one's not. Yeah. I don't want to get too finicky about that. But yeah, you're basically like commercializing the greatest loss of life and tragedy that the universe is known, but also specifically your people have ever known.
Your people.
Because they evacuated everyone from Asgard before Surtur destroyed it. And then Thanos killed all of them. Like, there's nothing to celebrate there.
It's nothing to celebrate. And that really burned me up, because that just shows that Taika Waititi as a director and as a visionary, and I'm using that
heavy air quotes.
Yeah. So he took that and decided to make it an ice cream shop. That is so disrespectful. Like, and there's other little things in that town too, that when it comes out on Disney Plus, I'm gonna like look at it, like look at the town, like freeze frame it and just look at the stupid shit that they have out there. But bruh, it amazes me. Like, he takes this property and he just shits all over it. Just puts his, oh, I'm funny, hey, I'm from New Zealand. Have you ever seen Jojo Rabbit? Because it's an awesome movie. It was an awesome movie. And Hunt for the Wilder People was awesome too. But it's not a major property. It's not, these are not your characters. You should pay respect to what got you in this Thor got you in this director's chair.
Maybe Taika Waititi has beef with Kenneth Branagh that I'm just not aware of.
I mean, he could. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on with that guy.
Because Kenneth Branagh was the original director for Thor. So maybe he just really dislikes him. I don't know.
Yep. So that's my. I think that might be. Yeah, that might be my.
We got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to speed run through this shit. DV sent me a series of interviews and behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah.
That I just took little excerpts from that I was like, these are interesting things that pissed me off. So the first one is Vanity Fair Taste the Rainbow scene breakdown. Tessa Thompson says, the great thing about Marvel Productions is that you have the time and budget to perfect the scene. While she is pointing out with Taika Waititi the failures in their VFX, like their shitty CGI that does not work and like things that look bad. She is saying that in the context of pointing out failed VFX. Taika rewrote the entire story 3 times to better explain gore cohesively. This iteration that we saw was his best effort after multiple rewrites.
Oh god damn it.
That's wild. Taika believes his mission statement was to portray Thor in a midlife crisis as a romantic comedy. Do you have any notes on that video? No?
I stopped taking notes after.
That's fair.
I just got upset.
I'm going to hop into the next one then.
Yeah, go for it. Keep going.
Around the table with the Thor Love and Thunder cast, Entertainment Weekly. Taika says he wanted to freak out Thor fans and make Thor very un-Thor. The cast states they had no visual aids for where the monsters were when they were fighting and what they looked like. Combat was them flailing at the air.
Flailing. They were doing that interview. They were just flailing around.
Most of Christian Bale's performance did not make the final cut. So what we are seeing is the best of his performance. And something I thought was interesting was a lot of the kids that are in the movie are the children of the stars and of the directors and producers and all that. So Love, Gore's daughter, is Chris Hemsworth's actual daughter, India. Which I thought was just interesting. But she wasn't a bad actress. I didn't have any beef with her. No. But they focused a lot on the kids and their performances. And I was like, this is whack as fuck. Because child actors are never... I mean, I'm going to say never. There are some fantastic child actors. Most of the time, they're not great. And this was not an exception. And the last one was Love and Thunder behind the scenes. Gore had a scene originally showing him removing his religious tattoo markings, which in my opinion would have been really good to see. You see him in the opening scene where he's got the tattoos, then he kills the Necrosword. The next time you see him, he's all scarred and scabbed up, and he's got like blood running out of his mouth and like sharp teeth. And there's no explanation as to why that happened other than the corruption of the sword. But having a scene where he removes his tattoo markings, which are a sign of a devotion to his god, would have been cool character building for him. Would have been a neat moment. So much of the audio of the movie had to be remixed in because Taika Waititi could not stop laughing during the shoots.
That pissed me off.
That enraged me.
That pissed me off so much.
I was so upset. Taika Waititi, I liked his movies up until this point, and I wanted to fight him after I saw a lot of these behind the scenes things. So like every time I sent Connor one of these things, it was because I was enraged by it.
Yep.
Like it pissed me off so much that I had to just send it to him, and it was just terrible. He's awful.
A quote from one of the cast members: "They sacrificed many of the long scenes and jokes for a more central, structured story." Bullshit. There's no way.
No way.
Apparently, the original cut of this movie is 4 fucking hours.
4 hours.
And you're telling me that they cut out a lot of the jokes and the longer scenes when it was literally a joke every 3 seconds? That's wild. Fucking... they only had $250 million, DV.
Only.
Our expectations are so high for no reason. And then the last part that I think is the most damning, Taika was doing daily rewrites to the script, so much so that the actors admitted they stopped memorizing lines.
Yep. They would come in every day on set and he would hand them new revisions.
And you can fucking tell.
Yep.
So much of that is horrible ad-libbing.
Yep.
Basically, any time that Natalie Portman has like a little monologue as Thor, I wanted to die.
I would have to agree with that. And what's sad is I feel like her cancer story arc
was great.
It was great.
She played that really well. She's a good dramatic actress.
She
know
is.
she's not a bad actress. This isn't Natalie Portman's fault. It really isn't.
No.
And honestly, I don't even think it's Chris Hemsworth's fault.
No.
It's whoever the fuck let Taika Waititi take $250 million to make this.
Hemsworth is amazing as Thor.
He's really good.
Like, he's almost the perfect person to play Thor.
I think he is perfect for playing Thor. But they keep letting Taika do stupid shit with this character, and it's frustrating.
It is very frustrating. So, like, I'm glad we're able to say all of this so I could finally be done with this goddamn movie, because we watched this movie together, and is this our first movie watching like at the theater together? Okay.
I think it's the first time we've ever watched a movie together.
So
like that,
it was cool because I had my whole crew, like everybody was there, like both sets of friends were there, like the non-movie friends and then my movie friends were all there together. So I'm glad to be done with this. I could stop talking about this goddamn movie after. I'm not even gonna do a review on my channel about it. I'm not. Wow. I didn't do one for Doctor Strange either.
Holy shit!
That's how pissed I was. Now Doctor Strange, I would have raged the fuck out because that's my dude. Like we go way back. So I would have raged out on my own video. So I did not do.
Okay.
I did not do one of that movie. So
I feel like you'd probably do the same thing for this one.
I'm not gonna do one. This is my review. This is my review. Yep. That's how serious it is. I think I'm done with Marvel. Like, I want to see Guardians.
We said that before. We said that after Multiverse of Madness. We said we were done.
Oh no, I knew I was gonna go see Thor.
No, that's true. We did talk about it.
I have to go see Thor. I had to go see Thor 4 to see how shitty it's gonna be. But I think Guardians 3 might be my absolute last one.
And you and I have talked about Guardians 3 and our expectations for it, like just talking about James Gunn as a director and how much respect he has for the characters that he makes and for the dialogue that he does. Just want to reiterate, so fucking glad the Guardians got out when they did, because thank God they were not along for that shit show.
Yes.
But I'm excited for Guardians 3 too. I think it'll be a good way to send off Marvel, because frankly, we should have let it die after Endgame. We should have full stopped there.
But I had to see Spider-Man though.
I mean, Spider-Man was okay.
No Way Home was good.
It was all right.
I enjoyed it.
It was good.
Fan movie. Fans.
It was. Well, this is also a fan movie.
Oh, because you got to see his ass?
Yes. It's what America needs to unite.
To unite, yes. Yes.
You got any other closing sentiment? This movie was a piece of shit.
This movie was a hardcore piece of shit.
Like, and it's so funny because I'm struggling to find like the tier list of like where I place the things that pissed me off, but like just like off the cuff, I think the racist accent and the portraying of like traditionally homosexual body language for a laugh, I think that's my number one. I think that like I was already mad at everything else, but like that was like, this is gross.
Yeah.
Like this is gross how they're just acting.
Yeah. And they said Russell Crowe like did that on his own. Like in one of the interviews, he was like, Russell Crowe, we put him in costume and he just came up with this awesome accent, and then he did the little dee down the stairs. And he said we had to keep it. It was gold. It's what they said. Taika himself said that shit.
Well, fuck Taika.
I'm done. I'm done with this movie. I'm glad I don't have to talk about it anymore.
Folks, I promise you there's things that we like. We're just drawn like moths to the flame to things that piss us off. If you want to see something positive, take a look at last week's review of Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just something I want to close out on. That movie was incredible. It was made with a budget of $25 million. Mm-hmm. This movie was atrocious, racist, sexist, and a slap in the face to anyone who's ever liked Thor as a character. Cost $250 million. So with 10 times the budget, they had poor CGI and VFX, horrible, uninspired dialogue, outdated memes for humor,
fight scenes,
incredibly boring fight scenes. Like I said, the best choreographed fight scenes was the kids because they actually looked like they were having fun.
Like,
It's a Thor movie.
Thor movie.
He's supposed to whoop ass.
Yep. But Jane got all of the whooping ass. And the thing is, she didn't have to do any cool choreography because her hammer can break off into 90 pieces and fight 4. So they removed the whole choreograph aspect from the movie. They didn't have to try. And they didn't care. And that's the final word.
Didn't care.
They didn't care.
Yeah, I'm done with this movie. And it's cars and stuff going by. And loud stuff. Yeah, I'm done, dude.
Fuck this movie.
Yep. Done with this movie.
Thank you all for joining us for the 7th episode of the Circles of Trust podcast.
Yes.
Next week, I don't know what we're going to do next week. Be a fucking mystery.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Not a goddamn Marvel movie.
No.
That's the plan.
No.
But thank you as always for hanging out with us. And we will, as always, see you next week.
Peace.
Peace.